Okay, so we have after start of tag body tran1, we'll do a new CSS rule. For now, we'll keep this within this document. The ID will be tran1. New CSS rule. We'll click OK. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to give this a box width of 200, height of 200. You can pick any color you'd like for right now. So we have background color set. We have 200 by 200. And then under positioning, let's set this to relative. And then for placement, let's do a value of like 2 top and then 2 left. 2 top, 2 left.
Did you put anything in selector to
ID. There should be an ID. Okay, so does everyone have background color? So we have a background color. Positioning is going to be relative with a width of 200, a height of 200, and then top 2 and left 2. Okay, if everyone is good, click OK. Click OK again. Click OK, click OK again. So what we should see is essentially just a box over here on the left. So with this transition, we always need a starting point. So right now, these are all the properties we can modify. If there was another property we wanted to modify, we have to establish that property at the beginning, right? Because it needs a starting state. Does that make sense? So if I think I want to move it, I need to make sure that I have a position, a left, and a top, so it has a starting point. Then I can do a left at a different value. Same with the background color. If I want it to transition to a different color, I need to make sure that there is a starting color for me to transition from. Make sense? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Window. We're going to go to CSS Transitions. And we're going to hit this plus sign, create new transition.
Where's that at?
Window Transitions. Window CSS Transitions. And then hit the plus sign. So this says, okay, which style do we want to target? And there's only one that we've established right now, so that's easy enough to select. What do we want to transition on? And there's a bunch of different options here. A lot of these are related to forms. So this is, if you've seen those forms, like when you click in the field and then all of a sudden it turns like yellow, right? What that's doing is it has focus. So once it has focus, it can transition to a different color. If something is checked, right, in a form, you can have it turn green or you can have it highlight or whatever you want. So that's what most of these are related to. But here we have a hover state and a target. So why don't we select hover for right now? What this is saying is use the same transition for all the properties. So if I'm going to modify background color and position, what's going to happen here is that it's going to, both the transitions will be exactly the same as far as duration, delay, timing function. if I wanted them to be different, so let's say I wanted the color to change, and then after the color changed, I wanted it to move, versus it happening at the same time, I could come in here and I could use a different transition for each property, which would then allow me to modify the background color. Then I can, let's say the background color takes 1 second to animate in. Then I can set a delay for the position of 1 second. So basically what would happen is the color would change and then it would move. Does that make sense? So for now, just for simplicity, we'll use the same transition for all the properties. And let's set the duration to 1 second, which means that the transition from the starting point to the ending point will be 1 second. We're going to do 0 delay, so there's no delay. And this is the transition type. So if you don't want anything to ease in or ease out, excuse me, you can do linear, which just means that it's a constant rate of the transition. My suggestion is you always use an ease in and out. It's very subtle, but it feels more natural. Now what we have to do is target a property. So what are we going to modify? Yeah, for now let's do the background color. So we'll select background color and then just change it to a different color than you had. And then create transition. Now, if you're in live view, what you should see is when you roll over, you should see your color change.
My end value didn't pop up.
What happened? Oh, you have to add the property for background color. Oh, 200. Oh, you have to set the width and height 200. So you can just go to your CSS designer, banner, transitions, and then it's 200 pixels.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, it didn't say that.
we should have.
I don't know. Click on live here.
You should have made the color more solid. Yeah, I'm just like tripping. So I get it all the time before my eyes are closing.
But we did it.
Okay. So let's assume this is a menu now. Let's do this. Up here under height, let's set the height to 100. Let's set the height to 100. And what we're going to do is right here, see where it says tran1 hover? I'm just going to copy this height. And I'll just put it right underneath this background. And I'm going to change this to 300. So now what's going to happen is when I roll over this, it will span down. And it will change the color.
Just taking it off there. I don't think that's the best school standards though.
Just have a D rating.
I'm not achieving that, Paul.
I'll do it up to a 75. I just want to be average.
This is.
Yeah, I don't want to get over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, shut you. I just want to be average.
Alright, wow. Simple things, simple things.
All right, so does everyone understand this concept up here? You need to establish a starting point, and your end value needs to be different, obviously, to see the actual transition. So if I said I want you guys to move this 20 pixels to the right when you roll over, what do you think you would have to add here? I want it to move over 20 pixels from the left.
Position.
Oh.
Change your
I have a starting value up here, so it should be a variation of something up here. Try to figure it out.
left.
Try to figure it out. I want it to move 20 pixels from the left when you hover over it. All right, go ahead and try to figure that out.
I can't even get mine to work. I don't know
Wait,
what
that's
it's
Well,
It's on trans.
You wish you had these skills. 360. No, it's not.
so what'd you do?
I just copy and paste.
Oh, it's because you saved the hack.
Got me into the position?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right here.
Just-
Copy.
I'm gonna keep it.
Oh, there we go.
So you do that, and
Yeah.
then bring it down
Oh,
here.
that's
Yes.
place it.
And then change the view to 20. Bam.
Change the to 22.
All right, so it looks like most of you have it. If I want this to move 20 pixels, I could copy this down here and just switch it from 2 to 20, and then it'll scoot over.
So after 300 pixels, semicolon. Yeah, there we go.
All right, is everyone good? All right. Now, let's do this. Let's go into design view for temporarily, so this way it's not animating every time we roll over this. Let's select the content in here and let's just delete it. And then let's put link 1. And I'm going to change this to a bullet list. So I'm gonna, yes.
So what if you want like the whole everything on the right, like not on the left side?
So what you're going to do is,
Like, do you get what I mean? From what I showed you.
yeah, well, it's that whole bar. So for you, you could just fake it so it's that whole bar that slides down. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the width of the whole page.
So you're gonna set it to 1. So you're gonna set this to 100%, and then this way the bar spans the whole width, and it'll slide down. So up here, instead of the width being 200%, it would be 100%, or 200 pixels. It'd be 100%, like this.
So what if like you like did it in Photoshop and then you made your menu like your nav bar? How would you bring that into here to make that work?
So you're gonna pick the color. So you would pick the color, but then you'd bring the text in like I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. I get it.
Because you're just doing that for visual reference, you're not gonna actually screen cap that menu. You're gonna actually do it in here.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what I'm doing now. So so in here I did link 1, and I'm going to create a bullet list with my link 1, and I'll hit return and call this link 2. Link 3, link 4, link 5, link 6. So I'm in design view, and I literally just typed in link 1, hit bullet list in my properties panel right here, and then I just typed in link 2, link 3, and link 4, link 5, and link 6. Okay. Just go in there. Right in there. Yep. One. Return. Just go until it's
I learned that Wednesdays when we don't
Awesome.
chicken pizza.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, lunch. I like those for big ranch day.
Big ranch. Sell my soul for it. Let's look at this really bad grade.
She gives
Look at that.
up those
Where's the money?
supplies. Really,
Sure, you watch that shit.
It had washes.
Let's try hard.
Because like,
Yeah, and I was like,
I know how to use like Photoshop.
half of the stuff at home.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
my God,
She's
you're so-
oh.
I was like, I would change class.
Okay.
Plus, I was
I
like,
didn't take this class.
I want a menu.
Yeah, you make these.
All right. So what we're doing now is we're going to go to CSS Designer, and we're going to do a similar approach that we did last time. We're going to get rid of our bullet list, except we're not going to float it to the left. We want to keep them as a vertical menu. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to hit this plus sign. And so what we're doing is the transition 1 ULLI, which is exactly what we want, right? This is saying the list item, space, inside the unordered list, which is inside of this div tag that we call tran1. So first thing we're going to do is we want to get rid of that bullet list, that bullet. So we're going to go to list style type and do none. Right? So list style type, none. So now there's no bullets. Next thing we're going to do is I want spacing between each of these. So I'm going to go up to my layout and I'm going to add a bottom margin to spread this out a little bit. So I'll set it to, I set it to 16. Let's do 15. So bottom margin of 15 and everything should have been spread out. Does that look right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Well, is everyone okay with this one? We have margin bottom 15 and list style to none. And so your design should resemble this. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, you see this bar right here, this color bar? What I want to do is I'm going to bring it up to this first link. So this way when I roll over, it will reveal these other links. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do as my goal. So I'm going to go back to tran1. I'm going to go back to my initial state. And I'm going to adjust the height until I see that bar go a little, just like that. I think that looks pretty good. Does that look good to everybody? So 45 pixels is what my goal is for this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this out for a second because I need to see what the height of my end result is going to be. So my end result will be about 225. So I'm going to set this to 45 here. I'll go to my tran hover and I'm going to set the height, what did I say, 225? To 225. So we need to do one more thing. Right now we're still seeing the links, and what we want to do is we want to hide anything that's an overflow. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to here and we're going to locate overflow Y. Y is the vertical. So under tran 1, overflow Y, we want to set to hidden. Now you're not going to see it here in design view, but if you go to live view, you'll see that it hides everything outside of that box. And when you roll over, now you have your drop-down menu. So again, tran 1, I have 100, well, I forgot what the width was. I just set it to 100 for Taylor. But whatever width you had, either 200 pixels, I think, maybe. Height is 45. Position is relative. We had 2, we had a background color. Then under tran hover, we set the height to 225. And for tran 1, we also set the overflow Y to hidden. That was the important part. So we would hide anything that extended outside of our menu. And then when you hit live view, you should be able to see it. Obviously, we wouldn't be shifting it over. I probably would get rid of the this left. So this way it just slid down. Does that work for everybody? All right. Any questions on the transitions? We'll play with transitions a little bit more next class. But next class you have static designs due, right?
Yes.
Yes, the 5th. So next class you have a minimum of 2 static designs due. But my recommendation